Constitutional Court yesterday heard arguments from the Gauteng Provincial Government and the DA on whether Section 139 of the Constitution was properly invoked when the Tshwane Municipal Council was dissolved in March of this year. Now, that municipality has been in disarray since a governing coalition between the DA and the EFF broke down, resulting in what the provincial government sees as a general collapse of leadership and governments in Tshwane. So if the DA wins this case, what will it mean for coalition politics in South Africa? That's just one of the questions in the saga. Ongama Mtimka is a politics lecturer at the university, the Nelson Mandela University, and he joins us now for some analysis. Ongama, good morning. Thanks so much for your time on this early Friday morning. I mean, it's easy to get confused about where we are at in terms of the Tshwane Council, but I mean, safe to say that it's been in disarray for some months now.
Good morning, Michelle. What we're seeing in Tshwane, Nelson Mandela Bay and Gauteng to a lesser extent is that it's difficult to correct voter behavior through the management of things among those that are elected in council. We are, regardless of whatever the court is going to arrive at, it's going to be very difficult to correct what is the core of the problem here. That voters have lost confidence on major parties, especially we are facing the decline of the dominant party system. And there's no alternative which voters want to recognize to the extent that that alternative replaces the dominant party. Well, unfortunately, my view is that we're going to see this until around about 2029, when new political parties or the ones that are in the country currently have been able to manage whatever transitions they are going through. Yeah. So, yeah.
But I mean, Ongama, the Gauteng Provincial Government, you can't disagree with its argument in the Constitutional Court that the council was in a disarray at the time of this dissolution. I mean, there was no meeting of the council for 6 months. It was without a mayor, a mayoral committee, and a city manager.
This is why, Michelle, I think that there are some significant errors in the judgment that kind of problematized Gauteng's intervention here. Indeed, when Lebohang Maile initially tried to suspend the speaker, you could argue that that was an arbitrary action, and I'm happy that he withdrew from it on legal advice. Should never have been done in the first place. But when the process was followed duly, I think from around the 15th of March, if my memory serves me well, that was a correct process, because you see there's correspondence between the MEC, the provincial government, and COCTA at a national level, up to the level of the NCOP. So that's how the section Section 139 outlines the process should unfold. And why I say there was an error of judgment on the part of the court is that, you see, the strategy of collapsing meetings is done by all political parties. In fact, while we still had the dominant party, look at when budgets were approved. Every time the Democratic Alliance would stage a walkout shortly before the budget is approved. Come to Nelson Mandela Bay, the meeting where Ethel Trollip and Jonathan Lawak were removed, the Democratic Alliance had staged a walkout from that meeting to collapse it. But the ANC were fortunate there, because they coordinated with province so that the MEC would do what is done in what is prescribed in regulations. That when the speaker is not available and the city manager is not available, send somebody to preside over the meeting. Which is something, by the way, which in Tshwane the ANC attempted to do illegally, because you cannot have barred the speaker and the municipal manager to preside over that meeting. They needed not to be available, as they were not in Nelson Mandela Bay. So the point I'm making here is that part of my interest in the Constitutional Court judgment is what the Constitutional Court is going to, what view is they are going to express on the strategy of, one, staging walkouts as a political tool that is used, and two, of not voting. Because remember, if a walkout is precluded legally by an interpretation of the role of councillors that says it is compulsory for them to attend meetings, it may be, that would not deal with the issue, because voting becomes the next issue. So councillors may remain in a meeting so that it corrects, it doesn't collapse.
Yeah.
But they may choose not to vote. When you vote for a mayor, that's okay, because the majority that counts is the majority of seats in council. But when you pass a budget, the majority must be more than half the seats in council. And as such, you would fail to approve a budget and rates and taxes, even with councillors that have been compelled to sit but have decided not to vote. You know what I mean? So you cannot use a legal process to resolve a political impasse of this nature. And by the way, the MEC, the provincial government, needed to intervene as a risk management strategy. Because remember, you cannot wait, like with the Makana judgment, for example, you cannot wait until there's a state of collapse before province intervenes, because then the courts say province has failed in its duty to ensure that intervention takes place in a way that protects the city. So you cannot, on one level, as a court institution, preclude a preemptive intervention that wants to protect collapse, while at the same time you have a standing court judgment that says the failure to intervene until there was collapse was wrong.
Yeah. In the meantime, what is this going to mean, depending on what the Constitutional Court decides here? What will this mean for coalition politics in South Africa, given that, I mean, the municipality has been in a disarray after that coalition between the DA and the EFF broke down? So coalition politics is the one question. And secondly, the big question here, it's the people who are always affected and service delivery impacted.
Coalition politics, Michelle, at least for the next 10 years, are here to stay. What we I think people will be exposed to the problems of coalitions, but unfortunately, that won't be enough to sway the votes to a certain direction. Because how you solve coalition politics is either through the voting in of a party that has a clear majority, or those parties in council recognize that they have to work together. Now, what we have seen is that the level of maturity in our political system is still a zero-sum politics game, where it's win or lose. Political parties in South Africa are going to need to get to a stage where they recognize, especially in Tshwane, I mean, if you look at the splits of seats there, nobody is going to have a majority. The DA currently, with all its coalition partners, has got 9 seats shy of what they need in order to govern. The ANC likewise. So they need to mature to the extent that they realize some non-zero-sum politics, where there's win-win, it happens. But you see, Michelle, one of the problems that preclude that are internal factional politics within parties, because people don't engage with these processes in good faith. It's always about attempting to wrest control of those municipalities and the coffers of those municipalities. So while, for example, my stance is pro-province in this specific circumstance, I'm only pro-province to the extent that it's the necessary pathway to go to another in the election, which may simplify the variable and reduce the numbers of parties that have to be considered for a coalition. Not because I think that province is acting in good faith, because they're not. They're not throughout the country. Okay, but it's a necessary evil when all the options have been exhausted at a local level to no avail.
Ongama Mtimka, it's always a great pleasure talking to you. Thanks for giving us some clarity on the saga that's unfolding at the Tshwane Council. That's a story we continue to track for you. The Constitutional Court yesterday hearing arguments for and against whether Section 139 of the Constitution was indeed properly invoked.